Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Imagine a world where a child, maybe living in a really remote village, gets a life-saving vaccine. And with just that single injection, they're fully protected. No need for follow-up visits.
Yeah, think about the other side, too. The health workers trying to reach those places, not just once, but maybe 2-3 times to finish the course. It's a huge logistical challenge.
It's a nightmare. What if all that complexity, all that, potential for misprotection could just be solved with one single shot?
It really does sound like, well, a public health dream scenario, doesn't it? A full immunization course done efficiently without needing those extra visits that, frankly, are massive barriers for millions.
Exactly. And that is precisely what we're diving into today. Our mission here is to unpack a truly groundbreaking new vaccine delivery system that's come out of Oxford, developed by researchers there. We've looked at a recent health news piece and, importantly, the detailed scientific paper behind this innovation. We want to pull out the key insights for you.
Right. How does this single-shot idea actually work? What's its potential for, global health? And what could it mean down the line?
Yeah, what does it mean for preventative medicine overall?
And it's such a critical area because it hits right at one of the biggest global health hurdles we face. Missed booster doses. It sounds simple maybe, but it's a massive problem.
It's not just a small inconvenience, is it? It's a fundamental barrier stopping millions from getting fully immunized.
Absolutely. And the numbers, well, they really make you stop and think.
They do. The data is pretty stark. In 2022 alone, something like 20.5 million children around the world missed out on routine, life-saving vaccinations.
20.5 million.
Yeah, just because they didn't get all the required doses.
And that leaves them incredibly vulnerable to diseases we can prevent. A key example they looked at in this study is the R21 malaria vaccine.
Right. Malaria is still devastating, particularly in Africa.
Yeah.
Huge numbers of deaths.
Exactly. So ensuring full protection with R21 is critical, but it typically needs multiple shots.
Okay, so faced with this challenge, this reality of missed doses, the Oxford team set out to do something pretty ambitious. Create a system where the entire course, initial dose, and the boosters gets delivered in just one injection.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first read that, it sounded almost like science fiction. How do they even approach that?
It is incredibly clever, yeah. It's really rooted in advanced material science. The core idea involves tiny, tiny biodegradable capsules.
Okay, tiny capsules. Biodegradable.
But not just any capsules. They're very precisely engineered, very sophisticated little things.
What are they actually made of? You hear biodegradable and medical, you immediately think about safety materials.
Right. So they're made from a polymer that's already well understood, already approved. It's called polylactic coglycolic acid.
Okay.
Think of them like miniature vaults, tiny vaults with a timed release.
Timed release vaults. Okay.
And here's the really smart bit. They get injected at the same time as the first vaccine dose.
Right alongside it.
Yeah. But instead of releasing their payload straight away, they're programmed to burst open inside the body and release that booster dose weeks or even months later.
Wow. So one jab, and the booster just sits there like a tiny biological time bomb. Well, time capsule, I guess, ready to go off at the right moment.
Pretty much, yeah. A time capsule is a good way to put it.
How on earth do they control that timing? That sounds incredibly precise.
That's the programmable part, and it's key. The researchers can actually fine-tune the delay. It could be as short as, say, 2 weeks, or it could be several months out.
And how do they adjust that?
They do it mainly by tweaking two things: the thickness of the capsule shell and the specific formulation of that polymer, the polylactic coglycolic acid.
Oh.
So, for example, in their lab tests, they managed to get release times ranging from about 20 days right up to 186 days.
Nearly 6 months.
Yeah.
And when that preset time comes, what actually happens? How does the vault open?
So the polymer shell naturally breaks down through a process called hydrolysis. Basically, it reacts with water in the body.
Okay.
And as it degrades, it creates this network of microscopic pores, tiny holes. And through those pores, The vaccine payload, the booster dose, gradually diffuses out.
Ah, I see. So it's not just dumping it all at once.
No, it's a controlled, gradual release at that preset time. Very predictable.
That makes sense. So they're not just clever, they're meticulously designed.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about practicalities? Like, can you actually inject these things easily, and can you make enough of them?
Yeah, two absolutely crucial questions for real-world use. And the good news seems to be yes on both counts.
Okay.
First, injectability. They've engineered these capsules to be about 65 micrometers in diameter.
How big is that, really?
Well, it's small enough that you can administer them using standard vaccination needles, like a 25 gauge or 27 gauge needle, the kind that are already used everywhere.
That's huge. No need for special kit.
Exactly. That lowers a major barrier for global health settings.
And making them. Scalability.
That's another key bit of the innovation. They use a patented manufacturing system. It's chip-based microfluidics.
Okay. Sounds complex.
Well, the clever thing is, it's designed to be compatible with existing pharmaceutical production methods.
Oh, right.
So it means it can be scaled up pretty rapidly for clinical trials, and hopefully for widespread use later, it plugs into what's already there.
Brilliant. Okay. And once they're made, how long do they last? Storage is always a big issue, especially the cold chain in remote places.
Another vital point. The sources say these microcapsules hold up well. They keep their efficacy even after being stored at 4 degrees Celsius, that's standard fridge temperature, for 4 weeks.
4 weeks of fridge temp is pretty good.
It is. That stability is really important for getting them out to diverse environments, especially places where keeping things constantly frozen is tough. It gives them a robustness that could be a real game changer.
Okay, so the tech sounds solid, the practicalities seem considered. What happened when they actually tested it? The preclinical trials.
Yeah, the preclinical trials gave some really promising results. They tested this single-shot approach in mice using the R21 malaria vaccine.
Yeah, how did it do?
The findings were pretty compelling. The tech gave robust protection against malaria. It almost matched the effectiveness you get from the standard traditional multi-dose schedule.
Almost matched it. Can you give us specifics, like how close did it get?
Sure. So the single injection, the one with the timed release booster inside it, reached 85% of the protective efficacy you'd see with the standard 2-shot approach, the prime boost regimen. That was after 11 weeks.
85% from 1 shot versus 2. That's significant.
It is. And just to compare, that single shot was about 4 times more protective than just getting the first prime dose alone, without any kind of booster.
Right, so that encapsulated booster is definitely doing its job.
Clearly, it shows that delayed release really works to boost the immune response.
And speaking of immune response, was it lasting? Did the protection stick around?
Yes, that was another important finding. The encapsulated booster triggered sustained antibody levels. These are the protective proteins in your blood for up to 11 weeks.
Sustained.
Yeah, and those levels were comparable to what you see with the standard 2-dose way of doing things. That sustained response is really what you want for durable real-world protection.
It sounds incredibly promising, and the researchers themselves, they obviously saw the potential here. There's a quote from Romain Guillon, the lead author.
Yes, I saw that. He really nailed it.
He said, "Our approach solves 3 of the biggest problems in delayed vaccine delivery. How to make it programmable, injectable, and scalable."
Programmable, injectable, scalable.
Yeah.
The trifecta.
Exactly. He called the microcapsules a tiny timed release vault, letting them dictate exactly when the booster gets released. And he thinks it could be a game changer, not just for malaria, but for lots of other vaccines or therapies needing multiple doses.
And if you step back and look at the global health picture, the implications are just huge.
Yeah, connect it back to the start.
It directly tackles those massive access barriers, right? Especially in communities where getting to a clinic is hard, let alone getting back for a second or third time.
It could completely change how vaccination campaigns are run, especially in those really hard-to-reach places.
Think about it. 1 visit to a village, potentially full immunization coverage instead of 2 or 3 trips. The savings in resources, time, lives.
It's transformative.
And while they focused on the R21 malaria vaccine for these tests...
Right, it's a platform technology.
Exactly. It has enormous potential for other multi-dose vaccines. They mentioned things like other virus-like particle vaccines, maybe some protein-based ones, viral vectors, even inactivated vaccines. Its flexibility is a real strength.
Luca Bao, another researcher on the project, he really emphasized that point about access.
What'd he say?
He said, reducing the number of clinic visits needed for full vaccination could make a major difference in communities where healthcare access is limited. Our goal is to help remove the barriers.
Remove the barriers. That's the core of it. Standing between people and life-saving innovations.
Absolutely. But, okay, we need to be balanced here. The preclinical results are exciting, but still early days in some ways. The scientific paper itself points out some limitations, doesn't it?
It does, and it's important to acknowledge those. They're very upfront about it. For instance, they need to do more work on the long-term stability of the vaccine inside the capsule.
Especially for those really long delays, like months.
Exactly. Making sure the vaccine itself stays potent and stable inside that little vault for, say, 6 months, especially under varying conditions, that needs more characterization. It's a material science challenge as much as anything.
Okay, what else?
Well, they used a fluorescent marker, dextrin, to track the release in some experiments. They note that this might not perfectly mimic how the actual vaccine behaves in the body.
So a slight uncertainty there.
Yeah, and future work aims to use a labeled vaccine directly, which would give a clearer picture of the release kinetics.
Makes sense. Anything else on the limitations front?
The immunological work mainly looked at antibodies. They suggest a deeper dive into something called germinal center B cell activity would be valuable.
Germinal center B cells.
Hmm.
Why are they important?
They're essentially the memory makers of the immune system. They're crucial for generating that long-lasting immunity, making sure your body remembers the threat years later. So understanding how this single-shot approach affects them is key for predicting long-term protection duration.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier, this tech might not work for all vaccine types.
Correct. The researchers themselves point out it might face challenges with vaccines that are extremely sensitive to temperature or pH changes. Things like the messenger ribonucleic acid, lipid nanoparticle formulations, the mRNA vaccines.
Right, like some of the COVID vaccines, their stability needs are often very specific.
Exactly. So this encapsulation method, as it stands, might not be suitable for everything. It's not a universal silver bullet, but it could cover a very wide, important range.
Understood. So with those limitations in mind, what's next for the team? Where do they go from here?
Well, the really exciting news is they're already working on adapting the manufacturing process, specifically for early-stage human trials.
Human trials. So they're moving towards the clinic.
That's the plan. It shows they're serious about translating this from the lab bench to actual human benefit. And apparently, they're already getting significant interest from pharma companies and global health organizations.
That's a very good sign. It shows others see the potential too.
Definitely. And it really underscores the power of different disciplines working together.
Yeah, Eleanor Stride, one of the professors involved, she had a great quote about that.
Oh, yeah.
She said, "This has been an extremely exciting project and a great example of how bringing together engineering and medical science can create solutions to global problems."
It's a perfect example of that synergy. Engineering, the delivery system, medical science, understanding the immunology and the need.
And that links directly to the ultimate goal, right? Getting it out there. Anita Milicic from the Jenner Institute put it really well.
What was her take?
She said, essentially, this is the exciting first proof of concept, proving it's possible to give the full immunization course in one shot. But now, the next challenge is adapting it, refining it, getting it ready for the clinic, so it can actually have that real-world impact.
The translation challenge, moving from possible to practical.
Exactly. So to sort of wrap this all up for you, what we've really looked at today is this incredible potential for a truly transformative shift in how we do preventative health care. The idea that a single injection could mean full, durable protection. It could dramatically simplify global immunization, potentially reaching millions more kids who currently miss out.
It's not just cool science, it's a potential game changer for public health across the planet, moving towards a future where things like geography or complex logistics aren't the barriers they are now.
Yeah, it really could reshape how we think about vaccine delivery, makes campaigns more efficient, more equitable, ultimately just more effective.
Absolutely, protecting more people more easily.
Indeed. So maybe we leave you with this thought to ponder. How might a system like this, a true single-shot delivery, change our whole understanding of what's possible in preventative health? Not just for diseases like malaria that are endemic now, but maybe for future health challenges that pop up.
Yeah. What are the implications for vaccine access, for health equity worldwide, particularly in our, very connected world?
It's a future that feels a lot closer after looking at this research.
Absolutely.
Quite exciting.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.